And this is The Globalist on Monocle 24 with me, Dominic Reynolds, and Clemency Burton-Hill. Now, in the aftermath of the so-called Arab Spring, the countries in North Africa and the Middle East that staged a series of uprisings last year now face myriad other challenges as they try to remake themselves, rewriting social rules, rebuilding their economies, and establishing new political systems. In the country which kicked off the entire revolutionary movement, Tunisia, one issue in particular has become a flashpoint: alcohol.
Unlike other overwhelmingly Muslim countries such as Libya, buying and selling alcohol is legal in Tunisia, and it used to be widely available, which no doubt contributed to its status as a hotspot for package holidays and stag weekends. But while the moderate Islamist government is not calling for a ban on alcohol, conservative religious activists are now pressurising hotels, bars, major tourist sites and other public institutions to go dry, with some going so far as to terrorising both owners and customers and setting fire to liquor stores around the country. Well, to tell us more about what this backlash against the booze might mean for the country's future, and in particular its tourism, we're joined on the line now by Nabila Ramdani, North Africa correspondent for France 24. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
Let's talk in particular about this Salafist attacking a hotel in the Tunisian town of Sidi Bouzid, which was really the cradle of the Arab Spring because its bar was still serving alcohol.
Yes, well, absolutely. And this kind of attack by Muslim hardliners is not, in fact, an isolated attack. It is the latest in a string of attacks by Islamists on venues they see as offensive, from art galleries to bars in hotels, for example. And actions like these will have a devastating impact on tourism, a sector which has already been hard hit since the beginning of the Jasmine Revolution in January last year. Tourism is, of course, a mainstay of the economy in Tunisia, and it's the country's biggest source of foreign currency. It's an industry which employs nearly 500,000 people in a country of 10 million. So foreign tourists are mainly attracted by a country which has, a tradition of being relaxed about its attitude towards alcohol. As you said earlier, the consumption and indeed the sale of alcohol is legal. But since the resurgence of Islamic hardliners recently, since the overthrow of President Ben Ali, foreign tourists, the numbers of tourists in 2011 were down by 2 million, and according to figures by the Tourism and Commerce Minister, Tunisia's revenues from tourism have dropped by around 50% in 2011 to about 800 million.
Clearly, as you say, the last thing that anyone wants is for tourists to be staying away from Tunisia when it's been so hard to get people to get back into that part of the world following those uprisings. I mean, how worrying is it, though, that tourists are attracted to a place simply because they might be able to get a beer after a day out?
Well, I think this will have a major impact on the wider economy in Tunisia. It's very clear that Tunisia's economy still awaits a post-revolution bounce, if I may put it that way. And the slowdown after the revolution is actually worse than expected. Last May, for example, a public relations agency, which was hired by the Tunisian government, placed an advertisement in some of the world's leading newspapers and business magazines with the tagline, "Invest in democracy," in an attempt to revive the economy by harnessing the feel-good factor attached to Tunisia. But it hasn't worked, and 20 months after the revolution, the economy continues to slump, investment has slowed, as I said, tourism is down, unemployment is rising, and the government's target of 4.5% economic growth this year is looking over-optimistic. But this is accentuated by the fact that people are now exercising their newfound freedom to protest for better living conditions, and are bringing the economy to its knees by staging almost daily strikes and sit-ins. And if you look at the figures for development, the economy had actually shrunk last year by 1.8%, and Tunisia's unemployment rate, which is one of the biggest grievances behind the revolution, has gone up to 18% from 13% almost a year ago, and it is hitting young people the hardest in particular.
Well, Nabila, Nabila, on this subject of alcohol, there are obviously lots of tensions at the heart of this sort of the new landscape of the Tunisian government, and we've said that the moderate government isn't calling for a ban, but it's these other forces, conservative religious activists, who are putting the pressure on. Where's this tension going to go? Where can we see this developing to, and how can we get a resolution?
Well, it seems that the Islamist movement is actually gaining momentum. And as I was saying earlier, the kind of attack we witnessed recently in a hotel where customers were literally chased away and bottles smashed is not an isolated act. A few days ago, a Franco-Tunisian politician went back home and he was nearly lynched by a mob because he went out with his 12-year-old daughter and his wife, and they were wearing shorts and T-shirts, and he was literally lynched on the street. And the worrying aspect in all this is that nobody around tried to stop that kind of attacks. Even though the government is not has declined to adopt Sharia law, it equally showed signs of regression, if I may put it that way. It's this moderate Islamic government which is trying to implement changes in the constitution, meaning that women will not be equal to men any longer, but would complement men. And that's a very worrying development in a country which has traditionally, advanced the role of women in society. So I think Tunisia has to worry not only from the resurgence of hardcore Islamists, but also the more moderate people in charge.
Nabila, fascinating questions there. How Tunisians really figure out what kind of country they want to build in the wake of their revolution. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll keep an eye on that story.